637 audio. KGB. 637 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Appreciate you being here and want to welcome on in Congressman Scott Desjarlais. Congressman, are you still in D.C. or are you home here in Middle Tennessee?
We're in D.C. ready to get to work today.
Okay, very good. I want to play a soundbite from Donald Trump. I'm assuming you were at this, I guess it was a dinner last night, an event with Donald Trump.
And I do think that the war with the world, which is not a war at all, because they're all coming here. Japan is coming here as we speak. They're in a plane flying, lots of them, all tough negotiators. But things that people wouldn't have given us 2 years ago, wouldn't have even thought of it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7. They're giving us everything.
45 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk. As far as your weather, today going to be a high of 69 and some clouds. Congressman, so with the want by President Trump, he talked about this and others have talked about this before. I think he mentioned it last night. Are we prepared to create the infrastructure to create and manufacture the pharmaceuticals that are currently made in China? Are we able to build that infrastructure here in America? Because we're getting into this war with China, we got to make sure that we're ready to hit the ground running, and we are able to create these medicines here if need be. Are we able to do that?
That's a great question. In theory, yes, if we get the time to do it. The problem with politics in America is the pendulum swings so quickly. So Trump can implement a plan that lays the groundwork to make that happen. And then the media, depending on which side you're listening to, it's either heaven or hell. You get one or the other. It's shirts or skins. Nobody is willing to give things a try long enough to let them work. So he could put things on a trajectory to where, yes, we have the ability to do that. And then his ideas will get beat down. They already are. And, they'll put someone else in office, and with the stroke of a pen, they'll undo it. And back and forth we go. And that downward spiral continues. So I believe, yes, we can do that. I think nobody really trusts the pharmaceuticals coming from China. I don't trust much coming from China right now. A lot of countries are trading with China. What they found with China's Belt and Road Initiative is they overpromise and underdeliver. And I've traveled to dozens of countries around the world over the last couple of years, and everything that China has promised to do for any individual company has come up short. Not as promised, and so they're not reliable. I think here we have an opportunity to do what needs to be done. We just gave that away over the last few decades. Frankly, after the fall of the Soviet Union, we became complacent in many areas. Nuclear modernization, I keep shifting back to military because that's what I'm focusing on. But we kind of lost our edge, if you will, as a country. We became a nation of importers because they could sell cheaper goods, and we like that. But it's kind of a false economy, and we see our debt spiraling. And so, you have members here in the House right now that think, well, we can walk away from this deal and wait for a better deal. And I get that. If you're going to buy a car and the price is just too high, sometimes you need to walk and come back. So I don't know what will happen this week. We may not get it passed, but I just know from experience, don't try to get too cute with this. Take a win. If we can get 80-90% of what we want, we should do that, and then we can iron out the wrinkles. But back to your just direct question, do we have the infrastructure? No. Can we get it? Yes, I believe we can. And again, people are going to have to accept that this isn't going to happen overnight. This is going to take some time. You got to believe in the strategy. Obviously, on election night, more people than ever believed in President Trump's ideas. They knew how he operates. He's doing that now. I hate that people get squishy and squirmy. Am I a little nervous? Yes. But do I have a better idea? Not necessarily. And I think most of these people that are no's, if you ask them, well, what's your plan? They don't really have one. They just think there's probably a better one. So, in the middle of a game, you got to run the play that's called. And, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. So you run another play. But I think right now, as Republicans, we need to stick together, back the leader that the country overwhelmingly elected, and do the best we can. We're not going to bat 1,000, as Elon Musk said, but we can correct mistakes as we go. But we got to all be moving in the same direction, or we're just going to be standing still and be in the same mess that we've seen our country in now for too long.
All right, so I've got two more questions real quick. Republicans, I'm reading in both the House and the Senate, are considering legislation that would limit what Donald Trump can do regarding tariffs. Have you heard about that? And real quickly, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, well, I've heard about, we have three branches of government here to keep things in check. We want to make sure that, a terrible idea doesn't go too far. So I think checks and balances are fine. I think we can look at it, and I think that would create a open dialogue with the president, and whether we enact that or not, it opens the door for those conversations, and that's why we're here. We're a team. We have the Senate, we have the House, we have the White House, we have the Supreme Court. But right now, you're basically talking about how the House, Senate, and the President or the White House work to make sure these trade deals don't do too much harm and the tariffs don't do too much harm. So I'm totally open to those discussions, because there are people, that are more economically minded and probably have some good ideas. And so we do need to come together. Acting quickly is important because time is short in American politics, but also getting it right is important. And so, I think there's room for that. If we don't get this done this week, I don't think it's the end of the world. If we come back with a better deal in a couple of weeks and that works out, I'm fine with that too. But I think we need to get something done sooner than later.
Well, you're talking about the Senate is looking to their plan, their spending plan, saves only $4 billion. Some say, well, that's a start. But House GOP, they want to save $2 trillion. So your Republican congressman in the House, that's a pretty big divide to sort of be able to come together on. Is there a way in Trump's agenda, Trump's tax cuts are really at play here? So number one is, very quickly, how do you bridge that divide? And number two, can you just strip out Trump's tax cuts and vote on those all by themselves, and while you argue over the savings later? Is that possible?
Well, that would be your two bills. So we do this through reconciliation, and he would like to get it all done in one bill, and he probably remembers 2017 when things kind of unraveled and fell apart too. So yes, you could in theory do one bill through fiscal year September 30th in a reconciliation process, and then turn around and do a second bill. I mean, people are going to notice the Democrats bill this is a tax cut for the rich, but I think everyone listening probably notices with the $29,300 deduction, standard deduction for married couples, most people are getting more of a tax return than they used to, and so it's not a tax cut for the rich. About everyone listening would be impacted if we don't get the tax thing done. As far as the $4 billion to $2 trillion, that's a huge difference. DOGE, is looking at $1 trillion in cuts, and what's so confusing, that's not going to happen this year. This is usually like a 10-year projection, which makes it really difficult to believe in, because again, when I talk about the volatility of politics, what's happening in the next 3 years can be completely different for the next 4. And so, all these things are always based on 5 or 10-year projections, and it's really hard to do the math and wrap your head around it. So it's a very tough process. But again, you put the country on the trajectory you think is going to move us in the right direction, and you go with that plan and hope that people like it well enough that they keep it going long enough for it to work.
All right, Congressman Scott Desjarlais, always appreciated. And we could have spent another hour talking about the news of the day, but always appreciate you coming on. It is 6:53.